Good afternoon. Welcome back to the B&H virtual event space. This smile you see on my face is so real. We were having some fun in the green room beforehand. Scott Diussa from Tether Tools joining us. And Scott, what's up, man?
Hey, Derek, man, great to be back again and having some fun. And what better way to spend an afternoon than to teach some cool stuff? Why not?
Why not? And it's even better that I get to sit here and enjoy it and you get to do all the work because,
Yeah.
you do it better than I do. So today we're talking about workflow. So Scott, you're going to help everybody get their workflow in check. This is going to be a great workshop for everybody who doesn't know what Tether Tools offers, but also just in general, day of the shoot. What do you do? How do you function? How do you make things better? How do you make things easier? I think the goal we all want when we get to that day is we want to just be able to focus on creating. Scott's going to definitely have some tips. He's going to have some tried and true techniques and some gear that is going to help you get everything in line. So if you guys have any questions at all, do not hesitate to get them in. Scott's going to take us on a wild ride this next hour. He might yell off camera, might have a dog come jump on his lap. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what live TV throws at us today, but feel free to get your questions in, even if it's about one of the guitars hanging on the wall. So Scott, I'm going to kick it over to you. A huge thank you again to Tether Tools, the rest of the team. Jessica is going to be behind the scenes there if you guys have any gear questions on the Tether Tools products. But Scott, take it away, man.
I want to thank you all for being here today. My name is Scott Diussa, and I'm the technical sales engineer for Tether Tools. And today, as Derek was saying, is all about workflow. And this is one of those classes that, first of all, I love to teach this class. This class encompasses pretty much everything in a nutshell that Tether Tools offers for making the lives of photographers easier. And that is really the goal because, with Tether Tools, photos matter. And we want to make sure that you're getting the photos you need to in the quickest, easiest fashion. And we've got stuff to show you today that will hopefully help that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through both, of course, some presentation stuff. I'm going to take you through some live stuff. I'm also going to stand up because one thing I don't like to do is I don't like to teach sitting down. I'm going to lose my chair and I'm going to move around my space. This is my what would I call this? This is my photo, video, music room space in my house here outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And I've converted this into a quick and down and dirty studio today. I've got some Westcott lighting. I'm using an FJ200 and FJ400 light with their X-Drop backdrop. I've got my really cool 88 Charvel, blue Charvel guitar here that I bought in 1988. I thought it was 87, but I was corrected by a fanboy on a Facebook group that said, nope, you're wrong, man. That's an 88. And I was like, ooh, okay. So bought an 88. It's there. Now what I also have is I also have a workstation here that I'm going to be shooting into. I'm going to be shooting tethered into this workstation, and I'm going to show you my workflow for when I go on location to make photographs. I've used this exact setup in lots of different places. In lots of different, just like locations for different things I've wanted to photograph, and it works great. I'm also going to show you behind the scenes too. What I am looking at right now, I'm going to take you through all of that because depending on how your workflow is, if it's a simple workflow or if it's a more elaborate workflow, your workflow could be for still photography, like shooting into this workstation right here. Your workflow could be doing video presentations like I'm doing for you right now. It could be a bunch of different stuff, and how you build out your particular workstations for your own personal workflow is up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the tools to do the job. It's up to you to figure out what you want to build, and we're going to go from there. So with that said, I'm going to jump on into here and let's talk about what tethering is. Really, most people think of tethering like this. It's connecting the camera to a computer or some sort of a device so you can look at the images larger on a different screen than you can on the back of the camera. In its simplest terms, that's really what people mostly think tethering is all about. I'm going to take it a little bit further today to tell you what I think tethering is about for me personally. It is looking at it on a bigger screen so I can see it. And it's much simpler to view and make sure you got the shot. but it's also part of my imaging workflow. When I'm shooting a studio type situation, when I shoot from the camera into the computer, I have the tools do the job for me and I get it right the first time around. So let's talk about the components of a complete system here. So you've got a camera and you've got a computer. What I'm going to show you is everything in between. So what do you need to transfer your images? How do you protect your camera and your computer? How do you share your work? How do you see it? How do you collaborate with people? How do you keep it powered? This is one thing that a lot of people don't ever really think about is power. When you're on location, do you have a plug nearby or not? That's a big thing. And then the direct part is going to be about what I do software-wise, workflow-wise, and we're going to make some images and I'll take you through that. So most people think of tethered workflow is in like, oh, it's a studio thing. I'm not a studio photographer, so tethering doesn't work for me. That's not entirely true. Studio workflow is probably the #1 thing that most tethered photographers shoot in, in a studio environment, but you can be on location too. You can take a simple workstation, set it up, and make sure you get the shot before you leave the scene, rather than relying on the back of the camera to look at it. You can also work solo as well. And I am doing that right now. I'm going to share something with you. And if all of my technology is working, I am going to show you what I'm doing right now. This is what I'm looking at. This is my video production studio here in my house and what it's set up and what it's looking like. I want to show you this because I am working solo today. I am producing this video. I am switching between camera angles. I am teaching you photography. I'm shooting with studio lighting. I'm doing all of this in my house by myself and broadcasting it live to you. And you get to go on the ride with me on this. I'll just point out a couple quick things. I'm going to show you this in more detail later, but this is the computer, my work computer that's doing all the running on that. Here's my big screen that shows you all the Zoom windows, which is why I was like, oh, am I full screen? I don't know, because I've got so many windows open. I have my main camera that's doing all the video work. This happens to be a Nikon Z6 with a 14-30 lens, which is that nice wide angle view. Makes it a little bit more interesting on the other end. I've got my Tether Tools workstation here. I've got a video light up on the top. This is a cool light called Specular by Spiffy Gear. And I've also got my sort of like my demo table here. And this is where the phone that I'm holding is going to go in just a couple minutes to show you the top-down view of some things I want to show you. And then I have over here, I have my photo workstation. I have a really long arm in this picture. This photo workstation right here, I'm going to talk to you more about that. And then I've got the lights. I've got the FJ400. I've got the FJ200. I have something other over here that I also want to talk to you about later. And then I've got my subject, which is my favorite subject because that's like, they don't talk back to me and they look good. So this is me working solo right now. So when you think about tethering, all of this stuff is all my workstation set up the way I need it to be. I've been doing this for the past year just like this, and this is where my workflow is for my video. This is the way the workflow is for my photo stuff. So let's go on back over to here and let's keep on moving. So like I said, working solo, or you can also collaborate. And this is where tethering really takes on like the bigger studio stuff. Like if you have an art director and you have a makeup artist and you've got clients and everything, and you don't want them breathing over your shoulder, looking down at the back of the camera, you want to take the pictures, you can get the pictures from the camera over to another screen. So you can actually be collaborating together with a team of other people in the same situation. So different ways to think about what tethering can do for you. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is how do you transfer the images from the camera to the computer? Okay. Simple in a sense. You got two choices. You can either go with a wire or you can go with a wireless solution. Most people go with a wired solution. It is the simplest, easiest way to go. Tether Tools is very famous for these orange USB cables. Okay. I have them kind of all over the place in my house here, but Tether Tools is very famous for these orange cables, and I'm going to talk more about those in a moment. We also make something called an AirDirect, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute too. How you get the image from the camera to the computer is up to you. I'll kind of go over the pros and cons of both. First of all, if you don't know where to start, Tether Tools offers what's called a starter kit. And the starter kit is the choice of one of the 15-foot USB Tether Pro cables. And it also includes what's called the jerk stopper camera support, jerk stopper computer support, jerk stopper cable ties, and an organization case to keep it in. So if you want to know, like, how do I get started? Is it just the cable? It can be, but it really shouldn't be just the cable. You actually do need to have a couple things to protect both the USB port on your camera and the USB port on your computer. Okay, and then something to put it in and keep it all organized and keep it together. Makes sense. So if you don't know where to go with that, on tethertools.com, if you don't know which cable to order, there's a search by camera feature right at the top of the web page. Right there, search by camera, put in your camera make, your model number, and what kind of computer port you have on the other end. So computers nowadays are all USB-C, but if you still have a USB-A type computer, that will determine which product you need to get from your camera to the computer. So search by camera is your best friend when it comes to anything Tether Tools. Tether Pro cables are, like I said, they're usually high visibility orange, but if you want, we do make them in a non-reflective black. I know a photographer that works a lot on video or movie sets out in LA, and when he's shooting, he likes to shoot tethered, but also doesn't want any of those orange cables showing up in any reflections in any surfaces where the cameras might be pointing. So he uses the non-reflective black ones and has never had a problem. It works really great. So, and they come in like all different types. So whatever type you need, just do the search by camera feature and we got it. But they're made differently. They're made different than the cable that came in the box with your camera, which is about 3 feet long or 1 meter if you're overseas. The cable that came with the camera is really just meant for, like, okay, well, I don't have a card reader. I'm going to plug the USB cable into the computer and I'm going to download some pictures. Tether Pro cables are made for transmitting data, and they work to the fastest standards that USB protocol will allow for. They're made a lot thicker, they're better shielded, they're longer, they're 15 feet long and not 3 feet long. So they're 5 times longer than the cable that came with your camera, and they're super, super durable. So you buy the cable, take care of it, it'll last you forever. And it will transfer data the fastest possible that USB will allow for. And that's a very, very important thing when it comes to workflow. You're going to see I'm going to be referring back to workflow a lot, because I mean, one, that's what the class is about, but two, it's really about, like, how do you keep it efficient? Nowadays, cameras and computers are pretty much USB-C, and USB-C protocol is really nice. One, it doesn't matter which way you plug the cable in. I don't know about you, but a regular old USB cable, I had to plug it in 3 times before I got it right. I always felt like I needed to buy a lottery ticket if I got it right on the first try. Well, USB-C kind of takes that out of the picture, plugs right in. It's really simple. You can actually go all the way up to about 45 feet on USB-C, just to let you know how long you can go with this. USB 3.0 can actually go to about 60 feet, but that requires a specific amount of daisy chaining and which cable do you put in which way first. And that's all, again, that's all on the Tether Tools website. It explains all of that. But as you can see here, here's a USB-C cable on the left. We make it with 2 straight ends, or we make it with a right angle end. I just wanted to show you this because if you're going to be mounting the camera on a tripod and using something called a tether block, which I'm going to show you in just a moment, you can actually come straight out of the camera, straight down and underneath it, and keep it really, really efficient so it stays out of the way. If you need to extend that cable, you can use the 15-foot USB extension with what's called a Tether Boost Pro Core controller. That's that little box that you see right there. That actually helps to keep your tethered connection stable. Now, I say this because if you go longer than about 15 feet, computer ports these days, USB ports on computers are dynamically controlled. And if your camera goes to sleep, or if you put the camera down for a while and it doesn't sense any data coming through, it actually could put that computer, that USB port to sleep, lose your connection, and save that power to go someplace else in the computer. But once you pick the camera up, then you got to wake it back up and reestablish your connection. Well, that little box on the end of the extension cable there, the Tether Boost Pro Core controller, keeps the port on the computer awake and doesn't let it go to sleep, so you don't lose connection. And that's key to this. So anytime you go longer than 15 feet, you definitely want to have a controller on there to keep everything working real well. I have never needed to go much further than 15 feet, but one time I did, and I just plugged this in and it just worked like a champ, and it's just that easy. Okay. That's wired tethering. Okay. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about wireless. Now I'll tell you the advantages of wired. First of all, always think about it this way. Wired tethered with a USB cable is always faster than wireless. Okay, or at least right now, it's faster. So if your workflow is, I need the images there as fast as possible, you might want to stick with a wired solution. If you want flexibility, freedom, and distance, that's where wireless comes in. And we make something called an AirDirect. As you can see, the AirDirect is actually in this picture mounted to the side of the camera, which is what I do with mine, because it can sit in the hot shoe on the top, but it doesn't have to, because it's not hot shoe controlled. It can actually be mounted pretty much anywhere. So I use an L bracket on my camera and put the AirDirect on the side and leave my Westcott lighting trigger on the top of the camera, as you'll see in just a moment. The AirDirect offers a much further distance that it could shoot than USB. Like I said, USB-C is like 45 feet. This is up to 200 feet. Okay, so if you're a photographer that needs distance, and flexibility, you don't want any cables on the floor, you don't want anybody to trip over them, AirDirect would be a good choice for you. It doesn't transfer as fast, and I've got a whole nother class on wireless tethering that goes over transfer speeds, but I'm just gonna tell you right now, like for example, I shoot with a Sony a7R4, and just so this doesn't get incredibly boring, I'll come back to my live view here. So I shoot with a Sony a7R4 for most of my work. And this is a 60 megapixel camera. This thing is pumping out really, really large file sizes. Wired tethering for me is the way to go. Okay, I prefer to shoot wired simply because of the speed. And I shouldn't have done that because I just pulled my whole thing off. There we go. So it's just simply because of the speed. Wireless though, if I need it, if I'm going to shoot JPEGs, for example, JPEGs transfer a little bit faster because they're smaller file sizes. Wireless would be a good thing. But so for example, like a raw file out of this camera, I shoot a compressed raw file in this camera. It's about 67 megabytes. With a cable, it takes about a second and a half to transfer. It takes about 7 or 8 seconds wirelessly to transfer. By the way, the Wi-Fi in the camera to do the same thing takes about 18 seconds. So I'm just letting you know this kind of like there's a fairly big difference in there. And AirDirect does do a really good job of getting files from the camera to the computer rather quick, but it's not as fast as a cable, but you have more freedom because you don't have a cable on the floor and you also have the distance. So that's a really big thing. Now, a couple other things about this. Just like a cable, the AirDirect also offers two-way communication. So you can go from the camera to the computer, and you can also have the computer control the camera. So if this was like, say for example, like, okay, downstairs, I got a hummingbird feeder outside, and I put a tripod up and I put everything out on my porch, but I'm inside the house in my kitchen, sitting at the kitchen table, watching the hummingbirds come up. I can actually fire straight from the computer, and I can do it wirelessly. I don't have to run the wire underneath the door, for example. That's just a simple way of thinking about this. So you could actually run a remote camera that way. There are also two different Wi-Fi settings on here. This produces its own Wi-Fi network. This doesn't use any of the Wi-Fi stuff that's in the camera at all. It actually is like totally separate from that. This produces its own Wi-Fi network. So whether you choose the 2.4 gigahertz or the 5 gigahertz, that's up to you. Now, if you're like me, you have a router in your house and you have a choice, 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz. Most people connect to 5 gigahertz because they think it's just better. Well, it's just different. It's faster, I will say that. So if you're in your house, 5 gigahertz is going to be faster. But 2.4 gigahertz is better for distance. Like if I'm out in my driveway and I want to be online, I actually connect to my 2.4 gigahertz network in my house because the router can work through walls and interference much better at 2.4 gigahertz, and I get a better signal outside than I do with 5 gigahertz. Works the same thing for AirDirect. So if you're in a place where you need the full 200-foot range, you set it to 2.4. If you only need about 100, 120 feet, 5 gigahertz works fine. If you're in a place where there's interference, like a lot of walls or a lot of metal structure or anything, say you're in a warehouse or something like that, and there's a lot of metal shelving or anything, you might go with 2.4 gigahertz because it will cut through that interference a lot easier. The other neat thing you can do is if you're in a studio, say you're in your home studio like I am now, I can actually bridge this with my existing Wi-Fi network. So if I want to take pictures, be online at the same time as I'm taking pictures from the camera to the computer, I can bridge the AirDirect to my existing Wi-Fi network so I could still be on the internet. So that makes it really easy to shoot and share really fast, okay? But the biggest advantage for me on AirDirect and what it does is it doesn't use the camera battery for Wi-Fi. So if you've ever used the Wi-Fi in your camera, if you've ever gotten it to work out of the gate, that's a good thing. But if you have used it and you're starting to shoot a lot, it's actually using the battery in the camera for all the Wi-Fi, and your battery is going to go down faster. The AirDirect actually has its own battery, and it's a Canon style LPE6 battery, and it actually it lasts a long time. And actually, for me, I say on average when I'm shooting with this, I get a solid hour and a half. I could probably stretch it to almost 2 hours on a single battery charge. And I'm going to show you a couple things about that right now with the magic of moving over to this camera. So anyway, so here we are. We're back above my my workstation here, and I've got my AirDirect, and I just turned it on. So the power switch here, and you'll see the battery light's green. It's blinking the blue light, and the blue light just stopped. That's the Wi-Fi light. So it just served up its own Wi-Fi network right there. So you have the Wi-Fi light and the green battery light. Now, when the battery starts going down, this will actually turn to like an orangey yellow, and then it'll turn red. And when you have to replace it, it starts blinking red. So here's the battery right on the top. Now off to this side right here, you'll see here's the 5 gigahertz, 2.4 gigahertz switch. Then there's a switch here. I didn't talk about this yet. This is mobile and ADU. ADU stands for AirDirect Utility. This is the program that you run in the background on your computer that connects to the AirDirect. And what it does is basically tells the computer, hey, we've got a tethered camera, and guess what? It's plugged in just like a USB cable, but you're not. You're actually running wirelessly through it, but the computer doesn't know that. So any software that you use for tethering will actually recognize the ADU as if you plugged it into a USB. Now there's this other little port right here. It's called DC port. And this little port right here is the one thing that I think is really cool. And I'm going to show you that in just a moment. But let me describe how I'm mounting this AirDirect. Here's my Sony, and I have what's on here. I have a 3-legged thing, L bracket on the side of the camera. Okay, so this one fits nicely right on the side. And I have this other guy right here. It's called a cold shoe. This is an AD Arca clamp. This is made by Tether Tools to mount to an Arca style L bracket. So if I put this on just like this, and I tighten it up just like that, now I have a bracket with a cold shoe. What I do now is I mount the AirDirect onto this, tighten it down, and now the AirDirect is on the side of the camera as my Westcott trigger is in the hot shoe. Then all I have to do is plug in the USB cable. Now this is USB to USB-C. AirDirect ships with 5 different cables like this, all in different configurations. So no matter what camera you have, this thing will work with it, okay? And then just plug this into the side of the AirDirect, and now I am running, okay? Now, as I'm shooting, you can tuck these wires back like that. As I'm shooting, if this starts to go to yellow and to red, I can actually take this. AirDirect also ships with this cable right here. It's USB to DC cable, okay? And since we make battery packs, which I'm going to talk further about later, I'm going to plug this in right here, and then I'm going to plug this in right here on the side. And now what I can do is I can actually take the battery off, and you notice the light's still green because now it's getting all its battery power from this right here. So now I can actually get another battery, hot swap this out, put this back in, and take this plug out. Or if I wanted to, I can actually put this battery in my pocket and run directly to the DC cable right here and run for hours. I could run all day on this. And I actually did that recently at a trade show in Vegas. I was shooting pictures at this trade show, and I walked around all day with this battery, with this cable plugged into the AirDirect. And then when I'd never even killed this battery, but if you do, then you take this out, and now you're running off the battery right here. So that's the really what AirDirect was meant to do, is meant to make your life a little bit easier when it comes to wireless tethering, just like that. So with that said, that's the two ways of getting images from the camera to the computer, wired or wireless. The next section, protecting your camera and protecting your computer. I talk about this because I used to work for a camera manufacturer, and I know that a USB port on the side of the camera to fix it costs about $350. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to have the USB cable in the USB port get pulled too many times or wiggle too many times, because that USB port is actually just soldered onto a circuit board inside that camera. And as it starts wiggling, it actually will break the solder off. And next thing you know, you have to have that whole thing replaced. And there's a lot inside these cameras if you've never seen the inside of one. So we make some things called the jerk stopper. And the jerk stopper camera support is basically a small lanyard that attaches to the strap eyelet on the side of the camera and then grabs a hold of the cable. So as you're shooting, it's giving the cable support so it doesn't get pulled too hard inside that USB port on the camera, and it just holds it steady. This is the simplest and easiest way to protect the camera port, but there's more robust ways as well. The same thing holds true on the computer side of things. There are different ways to actually keep the cable on the computer side from actually getting pulled out of the computer. Not so much about breaking the computer port, but it's about losing your connection. I mean, like many years ago, Apple came out with the MagSafe adapters because people kept tripping over the power cables and pulling the computers on the floor. Well, it's just pulled away. Well, this is sort of a similar type of situation. These things will break away after so many pounds of pressure, and the cable will come out, but it'll just keep it from wiggling out or getting pulled out real quick while you're actually shooting. The next thing is something called a tether block. And the tether block is a really cool, really interestingly made device. It's a really nice piece of aluminum. They come in two flavors. They come with one with the Arca grooves, which is the one on the right, and the one without on the left. And you can actually put this on the bottom of the camera, weave the cable through, put this on the bottom of the camera, and then mount it to a tripod head. And that is a really easy way of going about like mounting a camera on a tripod and protecting that port. I'm going to show you mine actually real quick here. So I told you I was shooting with this Nikon Z6, and if you notice, I've got my Tether Pro cable is coming out the side, but it's also going into. Let's focus that up a little bit right there. This is a tether block underneath. Where's my finger? There it is. So this goes in one side and then comes out the other side. And this is actually the Arca Swiss style groove plate, and it's on an Arca Swiss style head. So that's just the tripod head right there that is holding my cable underneath. So that cable is right being held perfectly, and it's not going to go anywhere, which is really awesome. So that's the tether block right there. Now, here's another one. I showed you the one on the left, the Tether Arca clamp for AirDirect. That's how you hold the AirDirect on. The one in the middle is the one that I use all the time for wired tethering. It's called the Tether Arca cable clamp. And as you can see, it's got a funny little monster looking face, but you can actually clamp any size cable to your L bracket. And I'm going to be using this later when I actually do my live shoot for you. And I'll show you that cable clamp then. Also, there's another one called a cable spacer. If you are a photographer, okay, so this is workflow related here. Think about this workflow. If you're a photographer that shoots a lot of vertical images, say you're doing a step and repeat photography business, or you're doing something that requires just shooting vertical images like all day long, and you have it on a tripod and you don't need the camera really to move, you can actually go ahead and mount the camera vertically and use your tethered cables coming out of the side of the camera, which is now on the bottom, to keep the camera mounted on the top of the tripod, rather than putting the camera on the tripod and flopping the ball head over and having the cables come out to the left. This actually keeps the camera rotated vertically. So, I mean, you could actually put a USB cable in there, HDMI cable, power cable, anything that you want to coming out through this cable spacer right here. And it's also Arca Swiss style mount as well. So really cool stuff there. But yeah, I'm going to show you the cable clamp in just a few minutes when we start actually making some photographs. Next comes the big stuff, the fun stuff, I like to say, is the collaboration part. And this is where you kind of get into the whole, like when I showed you my workstations just a few minutes ago, this is where workflow comes in, and what do you need on location to do the job. Now, secure workstations are all based around what's called the Tether Table Aero. And this is where Tether Tools started, was with our founder actually made a table out of aluminum to bring on location much easier than bringing an actual physical folding table. And it kind of took off from there, and it was first called Tether Tables, and then it turned into Tether Tools. You can mount these tables to tripods, C-stands, you can mount them to a lot of different things, but you can also configure stuff in multiple ways. And so let's go over a little bit about this. So the Tether Table Aero system can be like a tripod mount where you have this little crossbar and sidearm. So if you want to use say for example, a tripoded type of shooting situation, but you want the table with you, you could do something that looks like this. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But the Tether Table Aero is basically this. It's a very lightweight, super strong, durable aluminum table. And the magic to it is it has this bracket on the bottom. It can mount to Arca style grooves. It can mount to 1/4-20. I actually have mine mounted to a Manfrotto ball head over here. It can mount to a 3/8 inch, which if you take the head off your tripod and screw this directly onto the base of your tripod, you can mount it to that. And the largest receptacle there is what's called a baby stud adapter, which this will mount onto like a C-stand or a rolling stand or something like that as well. So there's multiple ways of mounting this, this pro bracket underneath the table. I showed you earlier the getting started basic kit for like, okay, you need a cable, you get the jerk stoppers, you get the organization case and the cable ties. What happens after that? Well, if you have your own tripod and you want to make a workstation out of this, the Pro Tethering Kit, you can go with this. And this actually has either you choose either the Traveler or the Master Table. One is just bigger than the other one. The one that I'm using for demonstration purposes, I'll just show you right here since I can. This is a Master Table right here. So this is the largest of them. This is, by the way, a utility tray. This is a small utility tray that can hold things. This is holding my microphone. It usually holds some other stuff. It holds cameras. It holds all sorts of things. I'll show you that in a minute too. And then this is the Traveler size table. And if you see, this laptop here, this is my 16-inch MacBook Pro. This is a 16-inch. And this is a 13-inch, and these are both the Traveler size tables. So here's the 13-inch, and I've got what's called a Stream Deck, which is running all of my scenes for changing cameras right here. But you can see that this is working. This has a little bit more space because that's a 13-inch laptop, and this is a 16-inch laptop. Okay, so this is what these are some of the pieces that come in the Pro Tethering Kit. So you also get the external drive solo, which is the drive bay under the front left-hand corner that you see there. You get the secure strap, which holds the laptop down. You get the hooks, which hold the cables on. You get the cup holder, which you just saw just a moment ago. You get jerk stopper clip-on support. You get the strap more, which I want to show you in just a second. You get an organization case and a case to put the table in. So you can actually take like your entire tethered situation in one case with you, like tripod, case, camera bag, and you're running in a tethered workstation. So it's really not that much to carry with you if you want to have this sort of setup in your own workflow. So what I'm going to show you is some of the details to my own personal workstation right here, and show you what's in this kit. So if I come back to here, so by the way, this is the cup holder. I put this on the side over here because this holds like everything in the world. So that's a good place for, this is my, technically this right here is my office. You're looking at this is my desk. I don't have any office furniture. This is my office furniture, okay? Now, if I come over to here, so let's take a look at this. So I've got my laptop, I've got the Tether Table Traveler. This is the Pro Pad underneath it, which is right there, and it's got heat vanes on it, so it dissipates heat. This is that single drive bay that I was telling you about right here. So I've got my external hard drive plugged into my computer right there, and that's just mounted underneath. Now, how is this mounted? Well, here's the bracket underneath right here. So you can see that that bracket right there is actually doing all the work. This is the drive bay, and it's permanently mounted, like not permanently, but it's screwed in. So this doesn't come off. This will just stay on. This, by the way, is a holder for what's called the D-Tap battery, which is in the next section. And this is just actually mounted to a quick release on a Manfrotto tripod head. So this is just my travel Gitzo tripod with a Manfrotto ball head. And I just screw it right into this, and this is my simple workstation. Works great. By the way, this is called the Strapmore. This is my my Tether Tools 87-watt battery pack, which can actually run or power my my laptop. So this is just Velcro. Basically, if I just pull this off and show you, this is just a Velcro strap that will hold this on, and it just sits on the tripod leg like that. So this is all just Velcro, and it's a really ingenious design. Now, when I come up here, this is the clip-on support for the jerk stopper. So here's my USB-C cable. This is coming down, so this isn't going to get pulled out. And this is the strap. This is the Tether Tool strap that goes across the laptop, so your laptop stays connected to your table. So as you can see, this is my 16-inch MacBook Pro, and I still have some real estate back here to be able to put some stuff if I want to. But this is my workstation, so that when I go on location, I actually bring exactly what you see right here with me all the time. And this is my photo workstation. It's got here's the J hook on the side, which is holding my my cable, and I'm all set. It only takes me a couple minutes to set this up, and for my personal workflow, this makes my life a whole lot easier, which is really pretty cool. So, all right, let's move on. All right, so I told you about some of these things right here, the cup holder and the Pro Pad and the drive bay. By the way, you can get a single drive, and you can also, if you wanted to, you could buy a dual drive bay if you really want to have lots of hard drives with you. And then the secure strap right there. Now we get into, so that's my simplest photo workflow right there for physically like setting up a workstation, okay? So what happens when you want to go a little bit bigger with this? Well, this is where you go with this rock solid crossbar and side arm, and you can make what's called a Tether T workstation, something like this, okay? This is really what I have happening in this situation right here. So you'll see underneath. So here is my tripod. Okay, this is a three-legged thing tripod that I took the head off. The head is actually right there. So this is the crossbar coming across, and this is the sidearm coming up. And this actually has mount point here. It has one on the end. It attaches here. It has a mount point there, and like one on the end right there. So I have the tether table master right here. I have the utility tray right here. I have the sidearm going up with the ball head attached to it. so I can have my camera on the top. So this is what's called the Tether T workstation. And I just hang one of the organization bags straight in like that. So I can just like, this is like a catch-all for, you know, like headphones and mics and cables and things like that. So this is part of my workflow that I just know where everything is in this situation, and it just works. It's pretty awesome. So let's take a look at, hey, you know what? You can put these things on wheels, you know, just like this. So here's the tripod roller right here, and I can move this whole entire video workstation anywhere in my room to create a different look or a different backdrop or however I wanted to. So I could put my tripod right on this tripod roller, and this thing actually folds up. These arms fold up, and this comes with the case, and it's actually rather small, and it's really handy. And it's also got brakes on there too, so it won't go rolling away. Now we start getting into a little bit of the bigger stuff. So if you think about like, well, I've got a big studio and I really want a full boat, like total workstation thing, you can do this rock solid low boy roller here, which is like a C-stand on heavy duty wheels, and it folds up too. And it also comes with a case to make something like this. Now, this is, as you can see here in this studio situation, you got the low boy roller. You can move it anywhere you want to. You've got the utility tray with the camera on. You've got the tether table attached to it, and then you've got the monitor mounted on it. And again, I'm going to go back through because this is sort of what I have happening. I'm actually going to, sorry for doing this to you. I'm going to go a little bit wider like that. So here's the low boy roller right there. And I come up and I actually have, move this music stand out of the way. I've got underneath, I've got the, this tether table mounted on a, what's called a master side arm and a master clamp right there to the base of that. And this is basically my desk. I also have a large Apple monitor that still has the foot attached to it, which is kind of nice because if I take this off, I can still put this on a table, but I want to show you how this is mounted. So this is mounted on the back with what's called a VESA monitor mount. And this is a bracket that actually holds onto the leg of the Apple monitor. And then this clamps on here. And then this goes right on the top of the low boy roller, or it can go on a C-stand. And that's how I have my monitor mounted. First time I ever got this, if I had seen this picture beforehand, it would have been a whole lot easier putting it together. But so I wanted to show you kind of how this works here as a visual. And I'm hoping that sort of stuff helps. So if you want to go with something like a workstation that looks like this for your studio, so where you can have your laptop and showing the images larger, you can also turn this around and make like a photo booth out of it. We have a lot of photographers that make photo booths, and they will mount the camera, say like off to the side, and they'll mount the camera and have the monitor turned around so people can see their pictures as they're being taken, and then you're just shooting straight into your laptop. So lots of different ways of going about this. I'm hoping that this information is really helping you out, because this is how you build a workstation, and it all depends on what your personal level of need for this sort of stuff is. I mean, it's all about again, it's all workflow. It's like, how do you want to get from here to there in the most efficient way? Like in this picture that you're seeing here, this photographer is going to be able to wheel this anywhere in the studio and work. So if you have a studio, like I've been to some larger photo studios that have multiple shooting bays, and they have the ability to wheel things around the studio, which is really pretty cool. All right. So I just showed you this, the large monitor support. We do that. And then we also make an AeroTab universal tablet system. This works great for iPads. It also works really great for Microsoft Surface Pro computers. So if you want to use like a Microsoft Surface Pro and not have to have the keyboard attached to it and stuff, you can just mount this thing with like a, that's called a master articulating arm that you see on the left there. You can mount that to the tripod, have the camera on the tripod, and be shooting either wired or wireless straight into it. So there's just so many ways to tackle these situations for yourself. And, you know, it's really, again, it's all up to, I'm hoping I'm giving you ideas and you go, oh, that's really cool. I could use that. Or that's a little too much. I don't really need that much. That's fine. That's what this class is all about. I'm showing you options. Now, the next thing I want to show you as we start getting into the last part of stuff, this one's really cool. It's kind of weird. I don't know why I get so geeked out about power solutions, but I do. I'm that type of person that when I go to an airport, so like when I walk into an airport, if you're like me, the first thing you're looking for is an outlet. You're like, oh my gosh, okay, I got my laptop, I got my iPad, I got my phone, and I'm about to take a 4-hour or 5-hour trip across the country, and I got to make sure everything's all charged up. So I'm always looking for some sort of an outlet kind of thing. And power solutions are awesome. And I love the power solutions that we have. So the first thing is we work with something called on-site power. We call this on-site power because you can take this with you on location and use this to power pretty much anything. These D-Tap batteries that I'm going to show you, they can power monitors, they can power LED lights. They're not really good for strobes because strobes require too much power, but these are batteries that are widely used in the video industry. And it's all based around the D-Tap battery with what's called the V-mount. And this battery it's not really huge. I'll show you like because you can't really tell the size right there. This is the size of the battery right here. So that's my hand. And this battery is about this big. So this is a D-Tap battery right there. And it has what's called a V-mount on the bottom of it. And this will power a lot of stuff really for a very long time. And what you can do with this is you can attach what's called the ONsite D-Tap to AC power supply. So now you have the ability to run like, if I show you, I'm gonna just fix something up here real quick so I can show you kind of some hands-on with this. Bring my camera back up to the upper deck here, and we'll go with this. So if I show you this right here, so here's the D-Tap battery, okay? And the D-Tap battery has 2 ports on the side. It has a D-Tap port, which is used for charging and hooking up accessories. And it also has a USB port. So if you just want to plug something USB straight into this, you sure can. You can take this guy. This is the AC adapter, AC power one. And by the way, there's an international version of this. So if you're traveling overseas or if anybody here is not in the US, there's an international version of this available too. And so this is 2 AC supplies and 4 USB ports on the other side of it. And you can very simply just plug this right into this D-Tap battery and run this just like this. So you just turn it on the bottom, and now you're up and running. And you've got this is delivering what's called 85 watts worth of power. Now there's also a better way of hooking this up. And I'm going to bring in this device right here. Might be talking a little bit ahead of myself. Yeah, hold on, I'll go back to that in a second. This is called a Versa V-mount. And this actually uses the pins on the bottom of the D-Tap battery, and this just mounts directly to this. So now you're using the power out of there, and you use this port right here. So if I plug this into this port, for example, like that, and then with some Velcro, I can actually just take this and mount it to the side right here. Now I have an entire system that's delivering 120 watts worth of power from the pins on the bottom to this side right here to these 2 outlets and these 4 USB ports. And this is one complete solution. And I can go ahead and hang this from a tripod, or I can mount it to a C-stand, or I can mount it to a clamp with a baby stud on the side of it. So this is a really cool power solution. Now, the next slide that I just started putting up there, this is genius. This is the D-Tap to, I'm sorry, the on-site AC power supply to car adapter. So this right here, so if you're traveling, and I don't know about you, but if I'm in a car and I want to use, I want outlets in my car, and say your car doesn't have those, you can just take this, plug this into here like that, plug this into the car and this in here. This will plug into the DC power in the car. And now you're running 200 watts worth of power into these outlets and these 4 USB ports. So if you're doing some traveling and say your rental car has 1 USB port and you got kids and they're all fighting over who's going to get the USB port, this might be your best friend for traveling. So just wanted to show you that, because I think that this little guy right here is an actual ingenious idea. I just think it's really, really creative to use this with this. So really cool stuff. We also have things to run cameras. So if you are a photographer that's doing a lot of video work, like I'm doing right now, you can use what's called the on-site relay system. And there's 2 different ones. There's Relay A, which is USB A, and there's the Relay C, which is our newest one, which is a USB-C powered system. And this actually keeps your camera powered for the whole shoot. And so if you're doing video, or especially if you're doing time lapse, okay? If you're gonna be doing long time lapse photography, these things are great. All you need to have is a coupler, and the coupler is basically a dummy battery that goes up into the camera and couples to one of these relays. So the Relay A power system is basically a single USB-A cable that goes into this box. It's got actually an 1800 milliamp hour battery in it. So if your USB power source goes down, you can unplug it, run off the battery inside this thing for a little bit, and then plug it back in, and you have continuous power. So you can you can plug this into actually like a power, like a wall type power system. Like it could be your iPad charger, your iPhone charger, something like that. And you can run a camera continuously without having to change the battery out. So if you're doing stuff like, for example, like the D-Tap system I just showed you, into like this with and doing long time exposures, you never have to worry about changing out your camera battery. This is the newest one. This is actually the USB-C version of it. This doesn't actually have a battery in it, but what it does is it has 2 cables on the bottom. And I could show you this real quick here. So this actually, make sure we're in focus. This has the coupler for the camera. You can get a, just like the AirDirect, I can actually mount this to, I could take this off and mount it. I put this on and I can mount this to the L bracket on my camera, or you can use this included orange strap with it and mount it to like a tripod or something. So you could pull the strap around the tripod and mount this to a tripod. But on the bottom of it, this is the key to this, there are 2 USB-C cables, okay? So if you plug this into a USB-C type battery, now I can power the camera this way. If you want to more than double, or you can use another one of these, or what if I plug this into here? Now I've got this battery and this battery doing double duty. One's not a backup of the other. I just want to be clear on that. It's using both of these batteries at the same time, but this is 9,600 milliamp hours. This is 26,800. So this one's going to run out first. So when this one runs out, this one's going to be taken over, and then you can take this, recharge it, bring it back in, and you're ready to go. So this can be mounted to the camera, to the tripod leg, and it's not very big. And this just goes, the DC port goes into the coupler, which goes into the actual camera itself. So this is the on-site Relay C, which is a new device, and is really, really handy for, again, anybody who's doing video or long time exposures. So just as long as you have this plugged into some sort of power source, it could be a wall unit too. It could also be like like your iPhone charger with USB-C on it, and it will run the camera forever. We do make, like I just showed you, this 30-watt battery pack, which is 9,600 milliamp hours. This is a great battery for running, like powering cameras or running that Relay C. This is our 87-watt, 26,800 milliamp hour battery, which I showed you before was attached to the tripod leg. This actually has enough power to recharge MacBook Pro. So if you're out in the field and your MacBook Pro battery is dying and you plug this into it, you can keep running for a whole nother battery charge. Finally, as we're wrapping this one down, let's take some pictures. We're going to go into the direct part of this. Now, the direct part is what do you use to get your photos into the computer? Okay. Tether Tools makes a piece of software called Smart Shooter 4. Okay. You can use different types of software for tethering purposes. Capture One is a great program for tethering purposes. Capture One is kind of like Lightroom. It uses library systems and it does support tethering. And it's a really very nice program. I use it myself too for a lot of things. I happen to be a Lightroom shooter for a very, very long time. So Lightroom Classic supports tethering. Lightroom Classic supports tethering in a lot of sort of strange ways. If your camera powers down and then you try and power it back up and you connect it, it'll say detect camera for a long time, and you'll have to probably restart Lightroom. It's a great program. Tethering isn't its strongest suit, but Smart Shooter 4 works in conjunction with Lightroom Classic through a plugin that comes with Smart Shooter 4. And I'm going to show you Smart Shooter 4 into Lightroom Classic. There's two different flavors of Smart Shooter 4. There's a standard version and a pro version. I'm going to tell you right now, for everybody who's probably on this class, the regular $69.95 version is perfect. The differences are some major features. Like, for example, if you want to do multiple cameras into a single computer at one time, Smart Shooter 4 Pro can do that. The Pro version will allow up to 8 cameras to be shot into a single computer at one time. So if you have 8 tethered cameras in, you can control them all in Smart Shooter 4 Pro. It also does barcode scanning through the lens. So if you're a high volume photographer, school photographer, something like that, you can actually scan the barcode through the lens and have that barcode data go into the file name of the image. If you're a computer programmer and you need to bring in a tethered workflow into a larger existing situation, photo situation, this has an external API where you can program this Smart Shooter 4 Pro to talk to other programs and bring that solution in. And then you can also create your own scripts. There's a lot of really cool scripts included in this program. And if you go to YouTube under Tether Tools channel, you'll see I've got some other Smart Shooter 4 videos on there that I encourage you to go watch because they're really kind of fun. And one goes over like this focus stacking script, which I just did a blog post on Instagram with the full focus stacking thing. So if you want to go to Instagram at SDIUSSA, at SDIussa, you'll see what I was doing with the Smart Shooter 4 focus stacking script, which is cool. So if you want to see more about it, go to YouTube, check out Tether Tools. But what I want to show you is this. I want to show you the Lightroom Classic plugin that Smart Shooter has included in it. Now, this plugin works with Nikon and Sony at the moment. This is the first time that Sony shooters have ever been able to shoot directly into a Lightroom Classic catalog. And considering that I'm shooting a Sony, that's a really good thing for me as well. As far as Canon shooters go, you're not out of luck, that's for sure. Canon shooters, there's a few things that need to happen between Canon and Adobe to get us to be able to do this. And but what you can do with Canon is you can actually set up what's called a watch folder or a hot folder, and you can actually shoot into Smart Shooter, go into a watch folder, and have Lightroom Classic pick it up and do stuff with it from there and enter it into a catalog. So Canon shooters, you're not out of the ballpark, but you just have to do a couple extra steps. And I told you I wanted to show you before I started shooting live. I wanted to show you the wire clamp that I'm actually using. And we're going to go into this right here. So I have my Sony here, and I have my cable clamp. This is a Tether Tools Arca style cable clamp. And what this does is I'm actually going to plug into the side of the camera with my USB cable, and then I'm going to wrap this clamp onto the L bracket right here and tighten it down. And now this is not going to come out. So let me go over to this camera here and I'll show you a little bit closer up on that. So as you can see, this cable is coming out and it's going into this right there. And then this is mounted at the bottom and is going to that. So this is not going to come out. So this is my favorite way of protecting the port on this camera from getting damaged. Okay. So neat stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my lights on. Let's take some pictures. I'm going to show you what's happening on this computer right here, and we'll wrap this class up. So I'm going to turn on, this is my Westcott FJ400 right there. I think my FJ200 is already on. That's good. All right. I'm going to turn on my flash trigger up on the top up here and turn the camera on. So that's cool. Just make sure we're all set there. Manual. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to show you a couple images. I'm going to broadcast this computer over to my main computer so you can see this screen. I'm running Smart Shooter 4 right now in here, and it's going to look like this. So as you can see at the top left of the screen, I've got my Sony camera connected. Here's all of the stuff, how I'm shooting this into the computer right now. So I know we're running out of time, but I want to get some shooting going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot the first image of what the FJ400 light is doing for me. And I'm going to shoot square just because I'm an Instagram freak right now. And so here is a base, sort of a base exposure. It's a little under, we'll check that out. And but what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that light off. And now I'm going to turn the other FJ200 light on, shoot the same exact picture. All right, so let's take a look and see what this one looks like. All right, so that's a lot more. So that's going to add to the exposure. That's lighting up the bottom part. So let's go ahead and turn both of these on at the same time and shoot one more. And right there, as you can see how fast these images are transferring in via the cable. So this exposure looks really pretty nice. I can actually, in Smart Shooter, I can come through and I can have this loop view where I can move things around and take a look and see how sharp stuff is. I can go in even tighter. That was 100%, but I can really get in. There's like 260% right there. And I can see all the rust marks from many years of playing and all of that sort of stuff. And there's my serial number on this guitar. It's crazy. And also over here on the right, you can see I have this quick loop view, which I can just kind of look at 100% around the image and just look for sharpness, which is pretty awesome. So that's Smart Shooter 4. I'm not cataloging anything in here, okay? I'm not cataloging anything into this. This is just getting the images from there through this to this sitting on the computer. Smart Shooter does a lot of stuff, but in its simplest terms, this is my workflow. I go straight into Smart Shooter, make sure everything is well exposed, looks sharp, and then if I want to go into Lightroom, I can do that. So what I'm going to do is let's come back over to here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start my Lightroom Classic, and we'll go to my workflow class catalog. And then once we get inside here, now, so you can see that now I'm in Lightroom, and I'm going to go to File, Tethered Capture, Start Tethered Capture. You can fill out a studio session or do whatever you want to. I'm just going to say OK from here, and up comes this bar, just like you see. So here's my Sony camera. It's shooting at 200th of a second at f8 at ISO 500, custom color for the white balance. And I'm going to say none on that. And I could just hit the silver button right here. This is the plugin window. I could hit that and shoot a picture. But since I'm not on a tripod, I'm going to move this down to the bottom of the frame and come back. And now I'm going to shoot a picture. And what I'm going to be doing is bringing these into Lightroom Classic, right, as a catalog into Lightroom Classic right here. What I can, and by the way, this is the same image that I just shot here in Smart Shooter. So Smart Shooter can be running in the background, or it doesn't have to be. The plugin is sort of like the Smart Shooter engine that's running in the background without Smart Shooter being up, but I like to have both of them up, because what if I want to do stuff to this image? So let's just go in, and just for the sake of freaking everybody out, I'm going to add some clarity to this. Oh my gosh, don't add clarity. Don't do that. Maybe a little texture, you know. You can go through and I can sharpen it up a little bit, and maybe, and if I got any noise in there, I'll take out some noise. And then what I like to do is I like to go to the post-crop vignetting and kind of darken up. So I'm losing, like that circle right there goes black, Now I'm losing like the leg of the guitar stand a little bit better, just like that. And so what if I said, okay, this is the way I want my image to look? Inside the plugin window where it says develop settings, instead of none, I say same as previous. Once I get an image looking good, now I can go ahead and I can actually just shoot into Lightroom, and it's going to actually start processing exactly how I want it to look. So if we have this, just so you can see a different picture, there's that one right there. See the vignetting and everything right around the corner of it? You know, what if I had up here, I have the guitar pick on the neck, for example, like that. You can actually be shooting into Lightroom and processing the images on the way in, rather than shooting like this one here doesn't have any of that vignetting on it. But if I go back to here and I look at this image, take a look at that. So that is the finished look. What if I wanted to take this and say, you know what, let's go with, I don't know, let's just do a black and white, low contrast black and white, for example. And I go ahead and I take the same picture, like right here, and I want to see this in black and white. So now here's a standard black and white image, right like that, as where in Smart Shooter, it's still color, because here's the last image I just shot. So I can be coming into Lightroom and processing my images on the way in to Lightroom and not have to download, develop, and apply all these settings later on. What if I find that this is the look that I want while I'm on set with the person who I'm shooting with or shooting for or something like that? I can now take all the pictures and have them come into Lightroom and have them be developed before I even leave the scene. That's my workflow. That's how I like to work in situations where I have this workstation with this camera and these lights. I bring this with me, set it up, and I go straight into Lightroom, make sure everything looks good in Smart Shooter, use the Smart Shooter plugin to go right into Lightroom, process it, and I'm done. Now, one added little tiny fun little bonus thing here. I'm actually going to go back and say none on this. And I'm going to show you one quick cool thing that I just got recently. And I'm going to take my little camera over here and show you just because I can, right? So, all right. Uh-oh, come on, catch up to me. There we go. This right here, you guys see this? This is called a light blaster. B&H has these on their website. It's made by Spiffy Gear. And this right here is attached with an old Nikon lens that I have and a speed light. And this actually has like gobo slides that you can get for it. And this has this little pattern slide that I'm going to put in here. And I'm going to fire this up, turn this on. And just so it's not like against a black background, I'm going to take that and I'm going to project that pattern on the background right there and show you what this looks like. And this is pretty cool. So I like this pattern for this guitar. It's neat. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. Boom. You see that in the background there? Isn't that awesome? So now you can have all sorts of fun stuff with this, but that's called a light blaster. And I just wanted to show you that because I thought it was a really cool, fun product to be able to just add some different dynamics to the background on this. And of course, since we're in here, if I wanted to go up to, you know, like, for example, like highlights and bring it up a little bit, or actually maybe bring up some texture, bring up some clarity, give it a little more pump, kind of thing like that, I can go ahead and do that. So that's the light blaster projecting that image on the background. And that was the last thing I wanted to show you. So with that said, sorry, went over a couple minutes, but if anybody has any questions, let's bring it on.
No worries at all. That was great information as always. And you know what, Scott, I think the reason why things like this are good is that you can see all the products. You can look up the website. It doesn't compute like it does when you see an actual setup there and see how everything is in use.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I appreciate that because that's really what I want to do. It's like, just want people to see what all this stuff can do, and then they could figure out for themselves what's going to work for them. And that's what workflow is all about. It's your own personal way of shooting and how you want to get from point A to point B and the simplest possible.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people, they know the orange cord and
Yeah.
not much beyond that. I mean, unless you're a really serious shooter who has a setup like that, a lot of people don't know all the products that you guys offer. So this is great just to see everything, see a full lineup of stuff and see how it works into a daily setup. Now, we did have a question actually on your streaming setup itself. Mark, who's joining us on Zoom,
Yeah.
wanted to know on the handheld shots, when you switch that camera view over to the handheld, how are you tethered? What camera are you using for that?
I am using my handy dandy iPhone for those shots.
Boom.
And I'm using a program called Epic Cam, EPOCAM, Epic Cam. And what that is it's actually the whole entire thing that I have going on right here is being run by Ecamm Live. Okay, Ecamm Live is a Mac-based program that has all of these scenes built into it. And then I use this Stream Deck to change the scenes. And one of the camera inputs can be this Epicam that is an app for the iPhone. If it's on the same network in the house, it just broadcasts the iPhone screen and what the camera on the iPhone's doing into a camera input on here. And I put it on Stream Deck on one button, and that's how I show the products. But that's a great question. I'm glad you were interested in that, because it took me a while to figure that one out. But now that I have it, I use it all the time. It's cool.
I'm glad Mark asked that too, because I was wondering too. I'm like, is Scott that good that he just ripped the Nikon off the tripod? And I was wondering it, but I didn't really process. I was too wrapped into what you were doing there.
I just figured, you know what? It's like I have an old GoPro that doesn't work as a live streaming camera. I've got an old other camera that doesn't work as a live stream camera. I'm like, can I use my phone for this? And so a couple Google searches later, and next thing you know, Epic Cam comes up. I'm like, oh yeah, it works like a champ. So why not?
Nice. Hey,
great question.
Great setup. And it works. You know, it's like we were talking about earlier. It's getting away from just a PowerPoint and really seeing this stuff in action, which it's just, you can't really put a value on how valuable that is, just to see everything in action.
You know, if I could be in person for everybody and standing in a room with all of you, and then the biggest letdown for me about teaching these classes is when I shut this program down and we hit leave on this room, it just ends. There's no more like hanging out, talking to everyone, having a good time, and like getting all these ideas going and stuff. You can't do that. And it just ends. So then I'm like, okay, now I got to clean the room up, you know? All right.
Well, we're glad you made a mess of everything and pulled everything out. I know now you're gonna have to do a photo shoot or something. Once we wrap this up, you gotta make use of all the gear.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, yeah, I'm going to leave this set up for a little while because I might do a few things with it instead of tearing it all down now.
There you go. No, it looks awesome. Look, you even had me over here. I'm sitting here. I'm on a dual screen. I'm paying attention, but I'm also on the website. I'm looking stuff up. I'm like, oh wait, I need that. Oh, that would work for me. And I'll be honest. I didn't even realize some of the products that you went over. I didn't even realize you guys had. So that's why we do this. You know, I thought I was pretty familiar with the Tether Tools brand, and you proved me wrong. So thank you for that, Scott.
My pleasure. And I'm glad I was able to bring all this stuff to light today. I mean, really, this is from here to there and everything in between. That's what this class is all about. So
awesome.
Won't be looking for much more, because I don't know, you know.
Now you gotta, next time you come back, you gotta just completely retool everything, or come up with a completely different workflow.
I got ideas for a next time.
Oh, good. Yeah. I like that. Jessica, I hope you're listening.
I think she is.
Well, Scott, we'll be looking forward to that. I'm going to be jumping right into my email and say, hey, I want those ideas. Hand them over.
Yeah.
Do this.
You got it, man.
Awesome. Scott, it's always good having you on. Jessica, thank you once again for, we let Jessica slide. We let her hang in the back there, but she pulls all the work behind the scenes and helps make all this happen. So huge thank you to you, the rest of the Tether Tools team, Imaging Brands in general, always providing us wonderful content and wonderful products. But that is all we have for now. So Scott's going to get back to shooting. I'm going to go finish cup of coffee number 4. But I'll catch y'all next time on another rendition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. Till next time,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys. Take care, everybody.